Kia ora tātou, ko Tim Barnett aho. My name's Tim Barnett. Recent research about what happens when somebody talks to an audience suggests that about 25% of people listen intently, about 25% have a wandering concentration, and 50% fantasize through the entire time. So just before the 50% of you enter into the fantasy, I'll give you some material to fantasize about, which is the name of our organisation, the National Building Financial Capability Charitable Trust, fondly known as the Trust. I'm the Chief Executive of that organisation. We do have a new name coming around the corner pretty soon, but in the meantime you can contemplate. I did actually get invited via LinkedIn recently to be the keynote speaker at a conference about the building industry based on the title of the organisation. So it's all in a name, as they say. I've been in my role for about a year. I was the first employee of our new organisation. We now have 10 staff. We're based in Wellington, and we are there to, as I'll describe, replace a lot of the different entities or complement the entities which variously represented the budgeting sector in the past. And we exist to create the best for your customers, for your clients, by ensuring that we can provide well-trained financial mentors, working in agencies that are quality assured, that advocate for good law and good policy, that have data behind them and operate as professional agencies, so that at the end of the day, people can go out from that agency better informed than they went in, and hopefully with more confidence in the future. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to cover our sector as it is today, the role of the financial mentor, the role of our organisation, the challenges for financial mentors dealing with lenders, issues facing the clients of budgeting services, and then some suggestions about how you as lenders can guide your staff to work better with our mentors. So the budgeting sector as it is today, we've gone through significant changes in the last few years, and particularly under the previous government, the Ministry and the Minister of Social Development decided to work with budgeting organisations around the country to redesign our sector. The main driver for that was insistent feedback that budgeting on its own was not enough to help families in financial hardship. Some of you may have heard of the report done by the Auckland City Mission and Auckland City Council, the Family 100 report in 2014, looking at the lived realities of people living in financial hardship. They described the experience of a woman called Charlotte based on the 100 families they spoke to. She said, "There's no point in going to budgeting because my income hasn't changed. Why do I have to tell my story over and over again? Nothing has changed. I have no money." Budgeting was seen as very transactional, and creating a budget quite clearly was not enough. People already knew they didn't have enough money. So for the last 2 years, working with our sector, our 200 organisations around the country, government has led several changes to the sector. The one which is the most crucial for you to understand is the remoulding of the role or the term budget advisor to become a financial mentor, and I'll refer more to that later. So today, the budgeting sector, and generically it could also be described as a building financial capability sector, has over 200 services nationwide, of which about 40 operate here in Auckland. 2/3 of those are funded in part by government, and the other third get funding from elsewhere. And they typically operate as grassroots communities and operate right down to small settlements in our society. Some are located, they're financial mentors, located in large social service providers like the Salvation Army or Presbyterian Support. And in total, they employ 1,200 financial mentors around the country. The biggest change that we're seeing as the philosophy develops is a recognition by those mentors and of our services about the knowledge and expertise of the different agencies they can refer people to address the different needs that they have, and that again is drawn from their real lived experience. So the role of the mentor has a new and improved focus. Now, just to make things a bit more complicated for you, a lot of our services still use the term budget advisor, but the training, the information, and the support they're getting is giving them that wider focus. Financial mentors do everything that a budget advisor did. They work with clients to figure out their financial situation, including income, expenses, and debt. They'll advise clients on how to cope with their situation, whether that means paying off certain debts first or reducing their expenses. What is new is that they have a mentoring role, and that implies a longer-term engagement beyond the immediate crisis that the client might present with. Just to take an analogy, which looking around this room and the fit faces I'm faced with here, the analogy of the gym, which is that if you go to the gym, you can either just go and have a prescribed program, and if you're lucky, you can actually keep it going, and if you get diverted into other things quite rapidly, you stop going, or you have a personal trainer who you might meet with regularly, and as a result of that, you're actually motivated to carry on. And that's the role of the mentor, to work with people until the point that they can actually see a way forward, and they don't, as a mentor, have the disillusion of seeing the same person pop in 2 or 3 months' time, yet again with similar problems. So the redesign of our sector, apart from the language and apart from that concept of mentoring, has also been around creating financial plans of action based on personal coaching techniques, and also to put a new emphasis on the issue of advocacy. So our financial mentors advocate on behalf of their clients to government agencies such as MSD, Work and Income, Housing New Zealand, and also to utility and loan companies such as yourselves. There are 60,000 people a year who come to our services. They have an average debt of $10,000. So we are working and supporting agencies that are dealing with $600 million plus amount of debt every year. In the process of documenting somebody's financial situation and their debts, often mentors identify issues with the practices of companies that clients need support to help to rectify. Now, it may be that the client themselves do not recognise there is an issue with the way that they've been treated by a loan company. They might not know their rights. They might not know what needs to be done to find a solution. And that is why the role of the advocate is so essential in this area. Loans are by their nature complex beasts, and therefore the role of the advocate in unpacking the situation and acting as a bridge between that client and your company, your companies, is absolutely crucial. Education obviously plays a significant role, but we don't live in a perfect and all-knowing society, and we all know the desperation for money can drive people to behave in particular ways. So therefore, in the more extreme cases, financial mentors put together dispute resolution scheme cases. They contact the Commerce Commission when they recognise breaches have taken place. And the feedback we get from both those agencies, both those sectors, is that when a financial mentor is involved in the case, they actually get clear information, unemotive information, and they can deal with the complaint more easily. And I suggest that's also the case with your companies, that you will actually see that where a mentor is involved, you should get more clarity about the issue and more possibility of a solution. The other thing that financial mentors are is a gateway to other crucial services such as the microfinance sector. It's good to see colleagues here today from that sector, from Good Shepherd and from Tangata. And that is another way in which people can actually access funds which are more affordable for them. So quickly moving on to the role of our organisation. We have a unifying role in our sector. There were a variety of organisations, including the Federation of Family Budgeting Services and others, who represented our sector. And now the Federation has closed down. We've replaced them. the other organisations continue, but they all come under our umbrella, including Christian Budgeting New Zealand and Christians Against Poverty. So we have a new energy to work together in our sector to deal with the big issues. We don't represent those agencies. Our role is to serve their needs. We bring them together in regional meetings. We train financial mentors at various levels. We support the operation of the agencies, and we do the advocacy work, including, as you can imagine, a bit of a focus on the CCCFA reforms that are about to enter into the next stage. And just to, I guess, give you a clue about the way we work, when we were invited to provide some initial thinking around the law back in January, we contacted all our 200 services. We received around 1,000 pages of comments from them about the way that the law works at the moment. We analysed that and we put that into MB, and we'll be conducting a similar process again over the next few weeks as that consultation happens. We're also building relationships with your sector, including people in the room today, such as Lynn from the Financial Services Federation, because we think collaboration and relationships is how to actually get solutions in this area. We work closely with MSD as the funder of budgeting services and also of ourselves, and MB, who are responsible for consumer protection. So we are very keen to improve working relationships with lenders. We know that relationships between lenders and consumer protection can be challenging, particularly if the media get involved or particularly when law reform is being discussed. Having a good working relationship with yourselves can make all the difference at our level. And we certainly aim to create and develop formal agreements with financial services providers so that when there is an issue, there are some guidelines to influence how each side is going to operate. We can work with our local service. You can give the information you have on a case, and very often we actually get that engagement and hopefully get a solution coming out. And there are companies in this room who have an exemplary record of working with us to do that. One recent example of an issue was a privacy waiver. A person working at the branch of a creditor was asking mentors to provide their dates of birth to be able to receive information. We clarified that with the company. They told us it wasn't their normal practice. We were able to find out on behalf of the mentor that in fact there was a breach of their privacy by checking with the privacy commissioner. So by doing that, and that's as far as it got, the practice of the company improved, the case was solved, and we could all move on. And if we can engage like that, to us that is a win-win-win solution for yourselves, ourselves, and the client. There are challenges for financial mentors in dealing with your companies, and that came out pretty clearly in that process we conducted this year. The challenges would include a lot of examples of irresponsible lending practices, despite the law reforms of 2015, often with very damaging results for clients. Most of that, in our view, is avoidable if compliance was better. The number one issue mentors face is people being given money that they can't afford to pay back. Poor affordability assessments that don't take into account a realistic budget for that person or family. People being given more money than they asked for, resulting in a higher level of indebtedness and significantly higher or longer repayment times. Creditors not asking enough questions about where their budget is going currently, such as paying back other loans. We continually receive complaints about aggressive marketing to existing customers, hampering the work that the mentor is trying to do with a client, including soliciting for further credit when the client was already over indebted. Mentors find it challenging when creditors put barriers in their way when they want to advocate on behalf of their clients, such as making the interaction difficult or not giving them the information they need about the loan so they can accurately see the position of the client. So issues facing clients are obviously numerous. Many of the clients are in a cash flow deficit, meaning their expenses exceed their income. each week they're falling further behind. Some have diminished mental capacity to make wise financial decisions. They're often under severe stress in their whole lives, and that affects their decision making, and they're getting sucked in to that debt spiral. They can have irregular or unreliable incomes and make regular payments difficult. And those issues don't just affect people on low incomes, they also affect people on high incomes who might be struggling with increased cost of living, particularly housing costs in cities such as this, or have experienced a sudden loss of income. So we're well aware of the dynamics and the volatility we often have to deal with, and what we're looking for is a calm solution to all that. So just some, getting towards the end now, just some ideas of how you could help guide your staff to work better with financial mentors. Almost always borrowers want to be able to pay off their loan. They need some support to be able to get there. So none of us win when in our community there are people paying significantly more than they need to repay loans, or have the kind of stress that debt can cause families. At the end of the day, everyone sitting here today in this room is part of the same community, and it's in our interest to work together to support our community the best that we can. There are some practical things that you as lenders can do to make the work of financial mentors more easy. One is to work constructively with the mentors when they contact you, take their complaints seriously, don't be dismissive of them, be responsive and timely with requests, understand that they are trained to recognise issues, and calling or writing to lenders, and the average person with an average 10,000 debt will have more than one lender in that package of issues to deal with. Calling or writing to lenders takes time and effort, and those financial mentors are often under severe stress themselves because of their demand from other clients. So mentors are calling to see you or talk to you because there's something serious that needs to be addressed. If a client has requested that you work through their mentor, do please respect that request. Otherwise, it can cause undue stress for the client. It's in all our interest to resolve the issue in as timely a way as possible. Do come and talk to us about having some kind of agreement with us, which means that we can get some stability and some structure to that relationship. We're just getting an expansion of our organisation's helpline at the moment. That means we'll operate for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and half the day on Saturday. And that will mean you can do hot transfers of calls from your call centre through to there, and we can then refer the person on to the most relevant local service. So that's a way for you to actually offer really practical help to people. If you'd like us to tell you more about that, make sure you give me your card before I leave here today at just after 4 o'clock. And I'll make sure we have somebody in contact with you to talk to your call centre staff and explain how that Money Talks helpline can be useful to them. And obviously you know that we're part of the wider consumer protection system. Our mentors are part of a wider consumer protection system. They're part of budgeting and social services agencies and all that means. They're linked to their communities. They're part of not-for-profit organisations, and they're also supported by government to create a fairer society. And indeed, we are all in this together. I'd like to thank the Commerce Commission, particularly to Lisanne, for inviting us to speak here today. These are great opportunities for lenders to come together, great opportunities for us to understand more about your situation and work out how we can come up with a constructive win-win relationship. Feel free to make contact with us about any of the points I've spoken to you about today. Kia ora, thank you.